I'll just share my screen as well.
Yeah.
Please give me access for screen sharing.
Yeah, it's given. Yeah, streaming is on. Huh? Yugada, can you check?
Just give me a moment, Krishna.
Yeah, it's working. It's working. Streaming is working.
Give me access for screen sharing, please. Hi, everyone. Good morning to all of you. My name is Ayush Patodia. I'm an AVP at Avalon Consulting. I'm co-leading this entire Sun Tzu initiative that we've had. With me, I have Yogadhya Mathuria. She's one of the winners of Sun Tzu from last year. And she'll also be sharing her experiences and her approach to the first round of Sun Tzu in this session. So we did see a lot of submissions which have already been submitted on the portal. And we thought that we should have a quick session just to introduce the hypothesis development process, how to build out, how to detail out issue trees, and what's actually expected in such a requirement. So the hypothesis development plays a key part in problem solving. The first step with any problem that you get, regardless of the problem that you're solving, first up, define, identify what the key problem is. With that, you go ahead with hypothesis development. You create your own hypothesis on what might be the answer. So this is also the answer first approach popularized by other firms. Once you have that answer, the hypothesis that you have, you identify key factors that will either prove or disprove your hypothesis. So it's very similar to the statistical concepts that you might have learned in college. Once you identify those factors, you go ahead and gather data for it. It might be primary research, it might be secondary research. Once you have that data, you refine your hypothesis if required, and then you go ahead with testing the key factors of the hypothesis tree that you've done. And then you build up your answer bottom up. What do I mean by bottom up? We'll just get to that. So the hypothesis development helps to address key problems that you might have in a case. We often have the client and the partners who have a lot of anxiety regarding the project. We always try to take a holistic approach. It means there are too many possible issues to consider. So what do you focus on really? Your project teams are made up of people working across different geographies and time zones. Data is often unreliable. It often reaches to you late. You submit a request for it. It takes time. Clients themselves are not often clear on what exactly do they want. They might give you different problems to focus on in every meeting. So how do you build on that? And this case study also might throw such hurdles to you as we progress in the competition. And often it's necessary for you to move the client towards the answer before the answer is even ready. You cannot wait till the final submission deadline to actually discuss the answers with the client. So the first step, as I said, before developing the hypothesis, the problem should be defined. We've given you the cases, read them through, identify what according to you is the key challenge that should be worked upon. So situation identification, put in or identify what complications are there, what are the constraints to that problem that you need to work within, what are the critical questions that need to be addressed by your team in this entire case study, and then develop the hypothetical answers that you would go on and test them and do solutioning for in the further rounds. Okay, so just to explain the entire hypothesis structure, first up, you will have your key hypothesis, your main hypothesis, and then you break it down. You break it down into the simplest solvable piece, ensure that all of those pieces, the A, B, C, and D that you see, they're all MISI, mutually exclusive and completely exhaustive. Ensure that they cover all the issues once, but every possible scenario is covered, because these are your mini hypothesis statements or your level 2 hypothesis statements, which you would need to test on. Okay, so the hypothesis development will involve your main hypothesis. You will have sub-hypothesis for it, or your L1 statements, and then it can again be broken down into your L2 assertions as well, your sub-statements. Do we only have till L2 assertions? Not always. There might be cases where you also need to go further deep down to L3 assertions, but ensure that you don't make it very complicated. Otherwise, you'll not be able to manage all those levels. And to ensure, again, at each level, they are MISI. They collectively answer the higher level question, the L1 or the specific L2. And again, logically, they should be solvable. Okay, so you should look at various sources as well. Talking to the client, using your personal experience, using the company knowledge base, use standard frameworks that are there, but ensure these frameworks are just a guiding light to you, and do not base your entire presentation on one particular framework. And you can always do some background reading on the industry. Okay, so this is one issue tree that can assist you in developing your hypothesis. So look at it quantitatively. Let's say if I'm looking at a RONA tree analysis, RONA is essentially your return on sales into net assets turnover. Break it down one by one. What is return on sales? It's operating profit by sales. Operating profit is your sales minus cost. Your cost price is an addition of your fixed cost and your variable cost. You can break down your fixed cost into the different aspects of it, which is administration cost, distribution cost, manufacturing cost. Not an exhaustive list, but just from an illustrative example perspective. And this is how you break down a problem statement that you identify or a hypothesis into the simplest solvable piece. This will help you to figure out that, okay, my RONA is lagging behind, possibly due to an issue with my market share, or issue with my fixed cost or my variable cost. And how will you actually test them out? By collecting data for them, looking at competitors, what the numbers are there, and then doing an analysis on whether these individual solvable pieces really actually affect your RONA or not for that company. So we'll be giving you data on a lot of aspects in round 2. But in round 1, we are expecting you to just create out an issue tree just for us to understand whether you're able to identify a problem, break down a problem, create an issue tree or a hypothesis at various levels, and zero down on the individual smallest solvable piece or not. That's it. Okay. So a well-developed hypothesis followed by key questions to be asked. This is essentially round 1. Will lead to identification of what kind of analysis is required, what deliverables are there, and finally your entire project plan. So this is a typical approach that we follow at Avalon for any kind of engagement that is thrown our way. And this is a proven and tested way of working. And this is what we want to inculcate in the future consultants as well across these schools in India. Okay, so we've seen the what part of it, what a hypothesis is, how you can develop it. I now invite Yugadhya to run through her case study from last year and just talk about the hypothesis tree that she created and what challenges she faced and so on. So over to you, Yugadhya.
Thank you, Ayush. So hello, everyone. I am Yugadhya Mathuria. I am a consultant at Avalon Consulting. And just a moment. Okay, so I will be demonstrating practically on how to build a hypothesis with the example of the last year's case study that my team had actually taken up. Let me briefly tell you what the problem statement was all about. The problem was related to a company in the automobile industry. Excellence Group had a range of products, as you can see here, from scooters to premium bikes to EVs. And they were able to grow their market share in states like Haryana and UP, which were actually underperforming. However, they were not able to do the same in Andhra Pradesh. And despite all their efforts, the market share in Andhra Pradesh was just hovering over 6%. Okay. So the problem statement was quite broad, and it wanted the teams to figure out any areas of problems that they can identify and steps that they can actually take to increase the market share. Can you move to the next slide, please, Ayush? Okay, so as Ayush mentioned, that it is important to use the background and the industry knowledge before you jump on to actually start, looking at hypothesis or even start making a solution. So what we essentially did was we read a few reports about the industry. We read a bunch of news articles, understood the value chain of the automobile industry, just to get a hang of how the industry works in general. You don't get a lot of information about the client, but you do have the background research, like you can do a background research on it. So we talked to also a lot of people who are working in this industry, essentially. Now, after doing all of that background research, we got some insights, and then that's how we went on to build a issue tree. Now, this is the issue tree that you can see on the screen here. It's not a standard issue tree, but it helped us to find each node where the problem can essentially lie. We used the framework of value chain, and we identified three components of the value chain here, from outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and after sales, which could essentially affect the market share significantly. And after identifying these three components, we delved deeper into it. So for example, if you look at marketing and sales, there are essentially three nodes to it: pricing, promotion, and advertisement. And then further down, breaking it down into multiple components. Just a word of caution here, this is not a one framework fits all solution. Like Ayush mentioned, this framework worked for our problem statement, might not necessarily work for each and every problem statement. Try to build an issue tree based on the problem that you have in hand and the background research you have done about the company. I cannot put enough emphasis on the fact that you have to essentially understand the industry well and have to do your research very well in order to build that hypothesis. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so after doing that background research and understanding the value chain of the industry, we found out our main hypothesis. So it was to improve the market share of the company in Andhra Pradesh. And based on our issue tree and our research, our hypothesis essentially was that Excellence Group can do this if it improves its dealer network, improves its market strategy, and improves its after-sale services. Now that becomes your level one, like how Ayush had explained, but it is important to delve deeper and go to level two. Now here, all the research that you have done will come in handy because you will know how practically the industry works and the levers that you can actually employ. So for example, in level one, you've identified that market share will go up if my dealer networks are improved. Now, how can you actually improve the dealer networks? This is done through either increasing the presence of dealers in certain districts or sub-districts of Andhra Pradesh, or by introducing some new incentive schemes. Similarly, to give you another example, one of the ways you can improve the market share is to improve your after-sale services. Now, how will you improve your after-sale services? By essentially improving the availability of the spare parts or the resale value of the, improving the resale value of the product. Because as we had seen earlier in the issue tree, for your after-sale services, three major components were repairs and maintenance and warranty. Now this becomes level one and then level two. Now the idea is to go as deep as possible and break down the hypothesis in smaller manageable chunks. Do not make it very complicated, but do make it easy. So you don't need to stop at L2. You can go even a step further to level 3. And the more you analyze the problem, the more detailed your hypothesis will actually become. The important thing to actually consider here is that your hypothesis should be practical. If it's not, you will face difficulty to test it in the market and arriving at a logical solution later on. So essentially, focus a lot on your background research. Focus on how logically you can develop an issue tree and find out problems in each of these nodes. So I hope this demonstration of last year's case study helped you get some idea as to how to approach your problem this time.
Thanks, Yugadhya. So this was the short presentation that we wanted to make. I hope this helps you a lot in further refining your submissions for round one. As you can see, we're not expecting a lot of slides in terms of the solutioning part and all that. the submission should only focus on how do you identify the problem, how do you break it down, and what are the questions that you are putting up to the management. So that is what round one is all about. In round two, we'll look at the other aspects regarding solutioning and all of those things. We'll be happy to address any questions that are there. You might put it on the chat over here. You can email it to us, and we'll be happy to answer them. I hope this helps. Thank you so much.